Hello, guys. Welcome to this episode of Centonomy. And my name is Keith Tupagatiramu, and I'll be hosting today's episode. So without further ado, I'd like my guests to introduce themselves. Where do you start?
I don't mind, yes. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Matu. I'm a friend of Centonomy, and I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, my name is George Thar. The first time I've ever been at Centonomy, and excited to have this conversation.
Mm.
Hi, guys. My name is Kingori, one of the trainers and the team at Centonomy. Been here about 8 years and really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Even for me, it's my first time. So it's nice to see a new place.
Yeah.
But it was nice to finally have this conversation, as Centonomy was a big partner to us during the men's conference. Mm. So even before we get into money, why do we men tie our identity so much to what we earn? Who wants to go first?
So I find many times men are action-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're able to do things, you get value. So the more you have in terms of money, the more you're able to do, therefore you feel some type of way. Secondly, we are oriented to be providers, and society has that expectation. So the more money you have, the better provider you are. But thirdly, money, the blessing and curse of money is that on the one hand, it apportions value. But unfortunately, in a human context, that doesn't work. So usually you'll find the person who seems prosperous or is prosperous, they're given some sense of value in a space. They're given a pride of place. Their opinion carries the day. So you find then, if you have more money, then you have more esteem. So you find that play comes, that interplay then ties to how much I have, then speaks to how valuable I am in the things I'm able to do, in the spaces that I'm in, but also in what I'm able to provide.
Yeah, I think what he said is important. I think men, our identity is tied to value. It's as simple as that. And mine is one of the uniform ways of creating value for different things and aspects. So I think the challenge is, whether it's money, whatever you want to use it, is if your identity is associated in what you're able, the value you bring to the table, it will always jump to whatever defines the value at that time. So I think it's just exactly what he says, is identity based on value, based on what have you done for me lately. If that is what gives you an identity, then it will always then be dictated by whatever defines value. And where we are today, money defines value.
I think it's, for me, at least the way I see it, I concur with both of them.
Yeah.
It's because a lot of men that I know, for example, don't have a clear understanding of who they are. So they invest their identity very much in the things they have. Because, for example, money is just one expression of identity. Think about someone who's an athlete, who has always been a good athlete. The day they can't play anymore because they've either broken their leg or whatever it is, and then they can't get back to form, they lose so much of themselves and they crumble. So money, if you ask me, is just an expression because of what it does. Because some people don't even have to be very wealthy, but they're the most, or even rich at all. But in the Kijiji, for example, somewhere in the village, this is the fastest guy in the village. So he's known as being the fastest guy in the village. So because he's known as being the fastest guy, he's given more regard or respect, whatever it is. Success 100% does, in any capacity, can become an identity, and that can be very dangerous. So I think men find their identity in money as a value or as a representation of success. But success actually is what they are trying to define for themselves. Every man wants to be successful.
Again, even before we get to money, because as you guys have all been talking, life is full of turmoil. There'll always be ups and downs.
That's true.
So how do we avoid the time for when we're crashing to not let that distress? Because that's, I guess, what we see with a lot of men. That expression that you've tied to something external disappears and you're done.
At least for me, I think it's about where I invest myself. So I believe as you're investing in becoming more financially successful, as you're on the way up, invest 100% in making money, it's very important.
Yeah.
But also invest in other aspects of yourself. Invest in relationships. Invest if you're married, invest in your marriage. With your kids, invest in your relationship with them. Because let's be honest, it's not 100% guarantee that you become wealthy and you're going to lose it all. In fact, the wealthier you get, the more likely what's going to happen is you'll just grow old. And the older you get, the less you become a rich old mzee. And that's a hard time, because whereas back in the day you used to carry weight because you were young and vibrant and you were making, and you'll still be very wealthy, but your voice would carry as much anymore. That's a hard time. Having all the money and all the resources, but none of the influence that you once had. So you have to invest in family. You have to invest in social aspects in your life that will give you the peace and the stability. Because I think wealthy people, one thing I noticed, especially the ones who maintain wealth for many, many decades, there's a predictability to their life. There's a consistency in terms of especially their social life. They've invested heavily you see they're very close, either family-oriented people. And I've seen it with my own two eyes because I know quite a few of them. Very close family, very tight-knit, very good social circles. They invest a lot in that so that God forbid if they lose everything, or God forbid when they get to a certain level of success and let's say they decide to retire, so their voice has no more say. Guess what? As in, they still have friends who they can call and people who they can talk to. That's my answer.
The other thing we struggle with in those dips is you've invested in one thing. And I love what you said. Build your person. But how do you ease those drops when you lose a job, when someone is ill, because those drain you, and when you don't have capacity? So a couple of the things that we begin to have a conversation is looking at, do you have an emergency fund? So that whatever happens, say for example you lost your job, or you have an elderly parent you need to take care of, you're able to sort that out. Have you taken insurance? And so that then if it's medical, if it's your vehicle, so that if something happens, you're not, beyond dealing with the issue, you're not lost in this thing has completely wiped me out. And I think that's what a lot of men struggle with, is if we are hit by a shock, many times because we take risk. So we've bet on the one horse. So when that horse doesn't win, we lose out. That's true. We lose out big. So it's very important as you build on what are the things that are important to you, that you begin to look at those principles that you put in place. Put away money, at least 6 months worth of your expenses. Start looking at insurance for the things that are critical. Then you have shock absorbers. Yes, then it gives you a bit of time now to have that. And then the way you're saying, to build that legacy, you also must be playing long. So what are you investing in? And unfortunately, that journey is not very colorful. It's discipline. With the little that you have when you have it, just consistently putting in the discipline of saving, investing towards that future that you're looking at.
I think, you mentioned about, especially for men, going ups and downs in the dips. And I think a core aspect is identity. We spoke about it before, because the reality of it is sometimes dips are, you can't prepare for them. The question is, what is the foundation? It's like if you have a house and there's storms and all these things come, how do you make sure that your house remains? Because that's what I did. There's a storm in your life or frustration. And the reality is, what is the foundation that is uplifting this house, this person, and that is your identity. What are those core value beliefs that give you a conviction of how I see you? Because once you have that, from a point of conviction, decision-making becomes easy. It actually becomes clearer. Aspect of getting an emergency fund and all these other things that are not clear when you have a clarity of why am I, what am I, who am I, what am I trying to achieve? And if you see a lot of the people who've changed the world, one thing they carried when they were young was conviction. Even when no one believed in them, they didn't need the world to believe, because they had such a strong foundation. So especially for men, I think, there's a saying, you have 6 hours to cut down a tree, or 8 hours to cut down a tree. Spend 6 hours sharpening the axe. The aspect of sharpening the axe is, what is my foundation? What is this thing that if push comes to shove, I can fall back on. And it starts first with the identity. And through that identity now, these other things start to come and create these buffers, because there's a point by Richard Foss about is defining what a man is. But the whole aspect of the problem is, if you were to lose everything, can you still keep
you have the courage to get it back?
and get back again? Do you have that conviction that these things that I get don't define me, but I can get them? So that clarity, I think, comes from making sure your foundation is from them that will speak into every aspect of your life.
Talking about conviction, I think I recently attended a class that was taught by you. And I remember you just saying that part. There's those guys who will tell you, even if you take me into the middle of the desert, I promise you in a year, I'll be back to where I was. So I remember you talking about that kind of conviction.
Absolutely.
But now that, you've talked about foundations. So to you, Matu, when you look at it, what is some of the biggest lies about money that someone tells themselves in their 20s that can show they'll suffer or they'll struggle in their 30s and 40s?
Well, there are quite a few.
What were you telling yourself?
Well, number one, I learned very early on to not have a negative opinion about money. And that's one thing in the 20s I heard a lot. I don't have that kind of money. And the thing is, I understand you don't have that kind of money right now. But the right now is never added. Who do you think I am? Where do you think I'm going to get that kind of cash? No, and for me, one of the biggest lies, obviously, I heard is that I'm not a baller. I have no way to do it. It's someone else's fault. My biggest in our 20s is our entitlement. That's something I had to really work on. As in, my mom and my father, God rest their souls, it was not their responsibility to give me wealth. It's a gift, yes, but it's not. I was not entitled to wealth. You see, my job is to go out and look for it if I want to be wealthy. Another thing is that, especially in this generation, is like the world owes you something. You know what I mean? Going back to entitlement. Nobody owes you anything just because you were born. That's not how it works. You see, be happy with where God has put you. You may not be in the most glamorous place. Like I look at my grandfather, he grew up in a colonial Kenya. He didn't have shoes until I think he was almost 18 years old. He was arrested and detained because he was part of the Mau Mau for 4 years. On both sides, both my grandparents. If they weren't entitled, all they were was ambitious.
Wow.
You know what I mean? They were driven to achieve and accomplish great things by a set of conviction, because they said, my grandfather used to say, I did not want to be poor. So I was going to do everything in my power so that I stopped being poor forever. I ran away from the poverty to the point where I become, he said, I used to run away from poverty. Every time I ran, my job was to run as fast and as far away from it as possible. And the only way to, because he had tasted it, real poverty, real hardship, because he was recounted how sometimes for him, a good day, he was lucky to find a doma when he was walking on the way home, because that's a treat. So I think entitlement is a big issue in your 20s. Nobody owes you anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. God doesn't owe you anything. So get rid of that idea that even God himself owes you. And everything you have is by grace. Everything. The moment you humble yourself in your 20s, the moment now God starts being able to use you to build.
What about you, George?
Peer pressure. So, like an example, I went to university in South Africa. Johannesburg. One big thing that they had is they call it club culture. So this is where you go to the nightclubs and there's a VIP. So everyone waits in line. But if you go into VIP, they open the red velvet thing. But to get into VIP, you have to buy bottles. Bottles, Jack Daniels. One of these.
Just so people know, yes, Apostle George used to partake in these things.
This is why we're talking about our 20s.
Before BC.
And the reality was, when you buy a bottle and sit, because VIP, they sit above everything else. There's this aspect that your value is.
You're more important than anything.
And what then you started to do is, it becomes a culture that you're going down every weekend. You're buying a bottle that's going for 10,000 shillings. And you're not buying just the one. And then young ladies around, so if the bottle is finished, they're like, what do we do now? So that peer pressure of trying to perform, and maybe when I'm older, we call it keeping up with the Joneses aspect, is that as opposed to having a defined vision of what you're trying to achieve with your wealth, you're allowing others to define what value is for you. So you start living a life of pleasing other people. So it's the same thing on social media and all these things.
Yeah.
So your decisions are not being dictated by what your vision is. They're dictated by how you look to other people, how you appear. So you can't fly economy. You have to fly business class. You have to can't buy a Toyota as a first car. Or you can't do this and that. And there's an aspect of an appearance that is important, but based on your vision, because there are certain rules, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you have to create a certain appearance around you. But if the reason you're creating that appearance is not in line with the vision, so the money that you're saving so that you can put on a mortgage, a deposit for your mortgage, you're using that to fly to Paris. Because your friends, they created that WhatsApp group. Paris 2026. You could say no. Those days in WhatsApp, you leave a group, it shows.
You left the group.
You feel I can't. But then it's deviating you away. So when I came back from South Africa, I came with no money. I was there for a long time, but I spent all my money. But that's why it's experience, you learn from it. But that's one thing I think if I could go back, is that aspect of peer pressure.
For me, I love what you guys have shared, is instant success. Tied to entitlement and peer pressure. Is you assume because you like something, you put it somewhere that somehow everybody owes you and you're going to be an instant. So when you go for a job interview, you're expecting to be given 500K straight out of the bat. You're expecting to be able to afford the BMW straight out of the out of the gate. And we tend to ignore the disciplines. Because the journey of building wealth is boring because it's a discipline. And you keep waiting for the big money. That's when you're going to. But then, like you're saying, you're 10 years down the road and you have nothing to show. But if you put in 10, 100, 200 over 10 years, then it has a significant impact. So for me, I think the big lesson in the 20s was slow down and develop the disciplines.
Learn the habits. It's the same as every other aspect of your life. Health, your relationship, your personal networks and relationships. Don't burn bridges unnecessarily. Preserve, because you see, a lot of us could be too impulsive, manage your emotions better, make better decisions. It all flows in together. It's just good decision making. But learn that early on.
Okay. In one sentence, what's a habit that you think, if was introduced to 25-year-old men, would change their financial life forever? Just one sentence.
Budget, recording, reconciliation. Just stewarding your finances on a personal level. So I'll just say that. Budgeting, recording what you spent, and reconciling it with the budget.
We hear the word stewarding a lot. Maybe you could give us a brief definition of what stewarding means to you.
So for me, I'm more from a faith-based perspective. What I believe stewarding from a God perspective. Stewarding is not preservation. A lot of people say, if I'm told to steward this home, I preserve it and make it better. Stewarding for me is making something fruitful and multiply. So whatever I have, how do I increase this thing? How do I make, if I have a business and someone invests into my business, they don't want to get the same money back. They're expecting a return from it. So how do I, anything that's put into me, into my institutions, my businesses, how do I confirm that there'll be a consistent fruit that will come from it? So that for me is the definition is, even if I'm being given this by someone else, it's not mine. How do I have the culture of all this causing it to be more fruitful? That for me is the definition of stewardship.
Anyone with a different opinion on habit?
Just because I believe your question was the three word a sentence would I tell my younger self? I'd tell myself tithe, number one. Because like George said, what he was alluding to about being the faith-based is everything is spiritual, including money. Where you get your money from, believe it or not, I know it for a fact. Some people, there's always a suspicion that you get, like you find 50 bob on the ground, just leave it alone. I was one of those people. And back in the day, you just take it like, you're being stupid. How can you leave money on the road? This is free money. Someone intentionally left it there. Blah blah blah. You start justifying it. Then I realized as I grew older,
it's a pretty good answer.
Yeah. That's all that. You see, I've been praying for this 50 bob or this 1K.
This is how God appears.
This is how God is appearing. Yeah. I've learned to listen to the voice of God and understand that money is spiritual.
Yeah.
So be very careful where you tie your money to. There's people I know who have invested in some dangerous businesses. And dangerous, not in the way you would, in the conventional way.
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, like gambling. You invest in that business as an investor because you destroy people's lives. There's a spiritual consequence. I know for a fact there are people I know who invested in the alcohol business and all their kids are alcoholics. Yeah. You see, it's a cause and effect. I don't believe that you just bahatisha and you assume you can just do whatever business you want and God will bless whatever business. If you do slave trading, your children will be enslaved. There's so many reasons that there's so many spiritual consequences for every decision that you make.
Yeah.
So, so I'd teach them number tithe. Yeah. So you can connect your money to God. Decisions. Intentionally learn how to make good quality, selfish. In fact, the key word is selfish decisions because every decision you make has to be in your best interest.
Wow.
If I was 25 and I was told that, even if I was 20 and I said, I could speak to myself, I'd say, obviously that, number one, type. Number two, learn to make good decisions because I made so many bad decisions that set me back. But by the grace of God, I was able to come out of the I guess you could say the rut that I had put myself in. But I teach people make different decisions, make selfish decisions. Don't do things for peer pressure. Thankfully, I've never been one to give into peer pressure, but the decisions I made were just bad ones. Yeah, it wasn't based on I was trying to impress somebody. In fact, on the opposite, I was just trying to do what I wanted, as opposed to trying to be intentional about making quality, valuable decisions. Yeah.
What about you, Mr. Kingori?
For me, identity and where we began.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges for men is we fall into squares or we fall into roles that we haven't fully appreciated. And so it'll be peer pressure, it'll be the space that you're in at a point in time, it'll be the culture, but what's your identity? And it could be faith. Yes, and just having that grounding, I think you spoke really well to that foundation. Because from there, then you're able to have a solid basis to make certain decisions, but also avoid certain things. Yeah. Because that's a point at which at 25 is where now you're coming out, is where now you start earning your own money. It's when you start having relationships. And where you make decisions that have consequences. And maybe 10 years down the road, or when you're in a coffin, then you have all these people standing up and saying, "Hi, Dad." Goes back to when you're 25. Yeah, and the decisions that you make. So for me, identity. And you talked about stewardship, and I think that's a really important thing. What you have in your hand, what are you doing with it? At every step of the journey. And importantly, and I love the angle you take to increase it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Because many times it's just you're a custodian. Yeah,
to preserve, yes. hold it. Yeah.
But grow it.
Yeah.
Yes. And to be fruitful. And actually, that's a call on us to go out and multiply and cause fruit. It will be fruitful.
No, I like what you said. Stewardship is not preservation.
Yes.
Yeah. But another thing you guys have brought a lot about, and you talk about it as a man being a provider, is provision a lot for family. So as family men all here, what does money mean to you as a family man?
Hey.
I let the one start first.
You're a junior.
I'm a junior. New member.
I think, as you said, money has a spirit. So your ability is similar to the mind. They say the mind is a faithful servant but a terrible master. But the way you put the money on a podium. So for me, money is a tool. It's a resource that allows you and empowers you to do many things that you couldn't do without it, because the world has defined a uniform way of defining value through money. So money allows you to create provisions, allows you to do a lot of things, but also money is a way the world reflects the value you have created. So I always believe that as a man, again, the Bible says God blesses us to be fruitful and to multiply. So He blesses, He empowers us with the ability to create wealth so that we can be fruitful. And money is something that enables that. So what I believe that as a father in the home, as the man in the house, there's an ability of what value am I creating that will then result in money coming. What problems am I solving? So that I'm not looking, I don't have sort of the hustler mentality that I have bills of 100,000, so I have to figure out what are things that I must do to get 100,000. Again, when I have my identity and knowing the value that I carry and what I've gone through the process of finding, I follow through that. So I'm not working to make money, but as I solve problems, to do that thing that I've been created to do, the result will be money that will come. A lot of the greatest, the wealthiest people were not trying to make money. Were solving problems, were creating value, and as the value was created, people will pay you for that value. But you see the challenge we have as young men when we start into provision, and sometimes you have this challenge of men who hit 50. They're like, I have retirement coming, I need money to do all these things. It's just your focus is on the wrong thing. If your focus is about making money, you start to try and make money and think that you're not proficient and you're not empowered to do it. You're trying to make money, the biggest one, you want to go into farming. And you've never farmed in your life. So you're looking for shortcuts to make money as opposed to saying, maybe I'm proficient with numbers, I'm very good at maths and all those things. How do I go, or maybe I'm an artistic and media. How do I enhance that so that I start solving problems with that gifting that I have that will give me the resources that allows me now to take care of my family, take all these other responsibilities. So what I'll say, when you get married, don't say that I have a budget of 100,000, I need to fund it any means possible. It has to be the other mindset of what am I good at doing? And the reality is that journey should have started way before you married.
Absolutely.
It's not something you start doing when you're married. But way before, even they say your spouse is coming to partner within that vision that you're working on together. So when there's that clarity, money becomes a non-issue. It's just there'll be so much of it because you're a good steward, you know how to make it multiply, and to be fruitful with it, and you even know what to do with all the things that is required.
For me, one of the things I did was I removed the element of money as being everything about being a provider. So first and foremost is I provide leadership to the home. And just to borrow what George has mentioned, vision. So who are we as a family? What are our values? Where are we going as a family? Then that translates into how then we manage money. And so we have a family budget. And so whoever is bringing in, it's coming into a common pot. And then what are our values? So one of our values is openness and honesty. So you put all your cards on the table and say, this is what I have. This is where I'm going. No. You put everything on the table. And then from there, you're saying, this is us. This is the journey we are on. Because like you say, now you start getting older. And then you're not able to provide financially. So do I cease to exist? But I'm still a father. I'm still a husband. I still need to be present in that. So even for my own identity crisis, money is just financial provision is just one aspect, and then money is simply a tool that we use now to enable us to do what we need to do.
I agree with both of them. That purpose in line with what you're saying, and also not getting comfortable, because I think there's a very dangerous thing that happens when you get married. God blesses you, which is a fantastic thing. That's not the dangerous thing. He blesses you, he increases you. As in, honestly to God, if you marry the right wife as a young man, things will go well. The problem comes in as opposed to you rest too much in the comfort, because see, growth is uncomfortable. You see, growth requires sacrifice. Growth requires pain. You get so comfortable, you stop growing, and you stop looking for ways to increase and prepare yourself for the future. You see, for example, we're having a conversation this morning, and in that conversation, I was telling someone, do you remember when our grandparents back in the day, because my grandfather bought a farm in a place called Shianda. Now, back in the day, there was hyenas, leopards, and people would say, because there was a drive by the Kenyan government at the time to, I don't know how many people know this. I like my Kenyan history.
Yeah.
There's a campaign called Rudi Mashambani. So they was trying to get, because there was so many people moving from after independence from the village to Nairobi for job opportunities. They were trying to get people to go back and start farming.
Yeah.
So people didn't want to go back to the village. They were like, no, Nairobi is where it is and this is where we're going to be. Guess what happens? People start selling their land in the village at ridiculous prices. So there was people. Most people said, "I'm not going to live with hyenas," and there was a saying that I'm not going to go and live with hyenas on Committee Road. No, thank you. Yeah. But my grandfather was one of the people who would buy large tracts of land. He built his house there. Now he may not be alive anymore, but it's a place that has become so valuable in today's context, and it requires you being uncomfortable to make that decision. Because you see, God, like I said, God will bless you. When you get married, if you marry the right person, you align with him spiritually, he will bless your marriage, it will be very fruitful. Yeah. The problem thing is number one, obviously maintain your faith in him, keep increasing it, and don't get comfortable. Because today's grace isn't tomorrow's grace. There's a new grace every single day, and there's a new mercy. So always have a different mindset where you don't want to get complacent, so that in your 50s, you've enjoyed you've been so comfortable, you've not done anything to expand your territory. When you get to your 50s, you're now scrambling for retirement. When you should have, when you first got married, use that blessing to keep carrying you to new levels and building and do uncomfortable things. I always tell my wife, I want a shamba, I'm buying a shamba somewhere remote, dry, and I'm going to farm from there. Yeah. She didn't get it at first. Like, for example, right now we live in a place called 5-Star Paradise, Runda. But it's in Kiambu County. Yes. Smack in Kiambu County. Yeah. The moment I talked about that, she said, I will never live in such a horrible place. Hey, it's so far away. No, find a different place to live. We have to live somewhere else. We have to buy a house in a different place. Guess what happened? The other day, actually, in November, she's like, Matu, thank you so much for making us move here. Yeah. I see it now, as in, because everything has moved in that area. Yes. And she's so shocked that I could see that vision in advance. So you have to have that ability to do uncomfortable things and keep growing. And not, if you started out in, because we started out in Kilimani. That's where we lived when we first got married. Yeah. Then we moved to now that side of Kiambu. Yes. Most girls would be like, no, I can never live there, and would fight it completely. But Arthur was like, you know what? Let me listen to this man's leadership. Yes. And it was uncomfortable. In fact, for the first 2 years, she'd complain about how far it is. Yeah. But now she's like, everything is here now. My new salon opened a branch here. Carrefour is here. There's so many things that she's used to that is right next to her. Yeah. And she's so grateful. Yeah. But it requires this uncomfortable decision making, living away from where, like you're saying, keeping up with the Joneses. Yes. Move far. The vision, God blesses people by moving them. You notice in the Word of God, every person who, here we are quite spiritual. Yeah. Every person who God blessed, he first moved. You know what I mean? He moved Joseph first from his father's house to Egypt, to bless him in Egypt. Abraham was moved from ancient Babylon, Sumeria, to Canaan, to the promised land. Yeah. There's nobody who God has blessed by keeping them in the same place. The first thing, he moved them far into a remote area, and then he blessed him in that remote area. So move, as in find remote, strange places. There are people who bought land in Syokimau 10 years ago, and they seemed crazy. Yeah. Now they seem like the smartest people in the world, because now everybody is living and moving towards that side. So
Again, it's just reminded me of, there's a class that I'm doing, thanks to you actually. It's called Purpose Leadership Forum class. And one of the things, so we've only done 2 classes so far, but one of the things both teachers, one seated right across us, and Pastor Apostle Angie, who taught before, was a lot of the things, or a lot of blessings happen counter culture. So when culture is moving this way, you should be trying to move the other way. And even some of the best traders in the world say the same thing. I think there's a guy who made money when everyone thought the market was crashing, but he thought it would rise. So I think that's also what I'm getting from you. But as a man in a family, when does money stop becoming about survival and responsibility?
No, it stops being about survival. Yeah. I think it's when you have a journey. Yeah. And I love that conversation. And we actually chatting with a friend of mine and reflecting on the blessings we are having because of sacrifices. Exactly what you said. Our fathers made. My dad was that guy of I
live with the hyenas. Yeah, let me live with the hyenas.
Yes, and he's just going around and he's like, when no one is thinking about carrot, I want carrot.
Now that place was dangerous back then. Very dangerous. Yeah,
and he goes round. When you have a plan, then you move exactly what you said. You stop looking at, I need to eat today, I need to pay bills today. 2, I'm on a journey. And I'm carrying this family on a journey. So then your focus is not the 100K, it's not the 10K, it's not the person, your landlord who's calling you now. Is we need to have our home. Yes. Yeah. I need to be providing for university fees for a child who is 2 years, 3 years in primary. I need to get my family into a safe, we need to be driving a car. So you have this plan that you've mapped out and you're engaging. So then it's not just the day-to-day, because the day-to-day will keep you very busy and you will get exactly what you need. But then you sit and then you're 50. Or God blesses you, you end up in a place and you have this abundance. You get a job that pays you money that you never thought. Then now you've reached. And then 5 years, and that's one of the greatest, most difficult conversations to have. Somebody is facing retirement, and I was reading some very interesting stats. The vast majority of retirees are using their pension lump sums to build homes. So it means they've been living in urban areas, living life, enjoying life, but haven't processed where they're going to end up. So you take this amount of money, it's the only money you're going to have. And then you do what? You go build that big house. But as you're building the big house, you become the farmer. You've never farmed. You build this house, it's 3-bedroom, all in suites. Then halfway down the journey, you don't have enough money to finish.
Because you've lost money in the farm.
Yes. Now you have an unfinished house. You have the disappointment. You have now the stress that you need income. Again, you've tied your identity to money. You don't have it. It becomes a nosedive. A huge nosedive. And then now you have this house, this farm, that you have to figure out
how to make it properly.
What do I do?
How to run it.
Yes, and it's a crisis. So that having that goal and you're consistently pushing towards it, then you move from just surviving.
You know, the one thing that I'm picking up for all of you guys, and I think a lot of young people don't have it, is that goal or plan. And what I get from you guys is you're having a goal or plan that's linked to your family. So for you guys, what do you see that kills a lot of these relationships? Is it the lack of money, or is it the lack of a clear plan of money?
I can say, without fear of contradiction, is thinking small. There's a lot of people who start marriage with small plans. You see, day to day, you need small solutions. I understand that. But a lot of people think small, then you remain small. It's unfortunate, but it's the rule of the way things work. As a man thinketh, so is he. If you think small, if you think all I want is to buy, and the thing is, God grants us our prayers. So I've learned to pray very intentionally. I want big things. I want to be wealthy. I want to be a billionaire. I want all those things. I don't want anything small. I think that's what happens. People get into life or start life with small ideas, small plans. And there's that saying, it's a circular saying. So I believe God gives you everything you pray for that is aligned with His will. But shoot for the moon. So if you fall, you land on the stars. You see, a lot of people don't do that. Everybody just says, let me fly with the crows here in the sky. That's enough for me. If I can just get there. But in the event that you don't get there, you'll get hit by buildings. A lot of people think small and aren't willing to make the necessary sacrifices that require them to do big things. Because I don't have to shine in Lavington. You know what I mean? I don't need to live in a house, a 150 million shilling house in Lamid. I'm okay. I'd rather live in a 150 million shilling house in Kiambu. Why? Or in Kibwezi. Why? Because I have everything I want. I can get here. I can bring the life that I want to me by the grace of God. But if I start trying to keep up with the Joneses, that's also now a form of thinking small. You're trying to live someone else's dream, and that's lazy vision. You should be able. I believe no more. Just think big, and then don't be lazy about your vision. Don't start saying because Kingori lives in Karen on a 2-acre piece of land. They don't even ask questions. How did Kingori buy that land? Yeah, they don't know what God did for him, and also God's blessings for Kingori are not blessings for me.
Yes.
So I need to do my own thing. Go where I'm supposed to go, live where I'm supposed to live, build and grow, and we'll meet up. He'll have his 2 acres in Karen. I can have my 2 acres in Limuru. And guess we both have 2 acres. And we both have nice houses. You know, but also thinking small. You can't just think about. Don't let life run. Like, cause I believe in farming. I love farming, and I'm going into it. But it's not. Like you said, I don't believe you should do it as a what's it called?
Hobby.
Not even as a hobby.
Side hustle.
Even as a side hustle, as a scramble. You should scramble into it. You see, things like agriculture businesses take time to grow. You have to be practical enough with yourself to do that. So if you want to farm or retire in your 50s, start farming in your 30s. Get the gist, fail. Another thing is people are too afraid to lose and fail. So you think small because you think that if you think small, you won't fail. But you have multiple small failures that amount to one big failure in your life. I believe I'd rather have failed before and I didn't die. And I recover. It's true. I'm still here. So I'm sitting here with you and I'm alive and there's a pulse.
And you have lessons.
And I have lessons which I've learned from experience. And guess what? I was able to bounce back by the grace of God and continue going. That's the attitude you have to maintain. So people, a lot of them is they think small. They have lazy vision where they want to keep up with the Joneses and think about how David is driving a Benz, even may need to drive a Benz, as opposed to say, maybe I don't really want a Benz. Maybe I want an Audi. Maybe that's more important for me. Maybe I want a house in Bipingo. You know, I don't want to live in Lamington, whatever it is. There's so many, we all have different visions and dreams for ourselves, but we always find ourselves copying each other. But that's where I think that we have that problem.
So just building on what Matu has said, at a personal level, one of the challenges that we find, even as we take people through Centonomy, is ambiguous goals. So you want a house, great. A house in Runda is very different from a house in Gekambura. It's very different from a house in Langata, in Syokimau. So how much is it? What's quantify these goals that you have, because then it begins to become tangible and you can create a roadmap. Then secondly, one of the interesting things, we all invest, but have we processed, does this investment make sense for the journey we're on? So I come and I tell you, yes, I'm selling an education policy. I have a child, boom, I invest. But you haven't processed what are the returns this investment is giving. On social media, somebody's pushing this product and it has fantastic, and Kenyans are brilliant at that. They're giving double-digit returns, best thing that has ever happened. In we go. But you haven't asked, is this thing actually a scam? Or even when it is a genuine investment, how long will it take
to mature?
Does it work for what I'm doing? You have a product that needs 3 years. I go and take school fees. Or I take money from the business. I'm like, 30% in 6 months when I need it. So that's working capital. Or you now hear there's a lot of excitement about the IPO. And so you go borrow and you put it into this IPO. And then what happens?
It doesn't pay off.
It doesn't pay off. Or the price just gives you the same return.
And you're still paying interest on the money you borrowed.
Exactly. So we have that challenge where now we haven't processed that the investments we have, are they actually helping us on the journey? But to add to the family dynamic, one of the most unfortunate situations I find, even when I do marriage counseling around money, is expectations. And many times expectations that are not dealt with and are not discussed. Interestingly, one of the conversations that always comes out is the man always becomes the default provider, but pays the big bills. There's no discussion about that. Then it follows that the lady will take care of the house. Now, fast forward, gentleman is making decisions because big bills. I decide where children go to school. I decide where we live. So you get now a spouse asking, now coming people like myself and asking, my husband, my spouse has accustomed us to a lifestyle I cannot afford. So there's an insecurity that's coming there. But flip it. As a gentleman, you're paying all these big bills, but there's no meat in the house. So when you do, how much am I paying for school fees? How much am I paying for rent?
Like it should be
How
enough.
much is a kilo of meat? It's going to be a conflict.
Yeah.
Or you come one day and you're struggling. There's a new car in the drive. Nobody talked to the other to say, this is us. So you now have a lot of resentment where a spouse is either insecure or they're resenting the other for seeing them not being part of the journey. And a lot of that just comes back to the conversation. We didn't actually talk about who are we and then what are our expectations. What am I expecting of you as a husband? What am I expecting you as a wife? And then also circumstances change. Because now what happens if I lose my job as a man? But your spouse is making a lot of money or is making more money than you. Is it still fair? Yeah, and you see, those are things that you see. Even if you don't know what her payslip is, you know her title. So you quickly do it.
Quick math.
So you're like, why am I struggling to pay school fees? Yeah, you can afford. And so then you find a lot of clash. And those expectations that are not discussed.
Apostle Jeff, to you.
No, I think he's covered it really well. Is that money is never the root of the problem. It's like leverage. It just shines a light. There are problems there. And most of the time with any relationship, it's communication and unexpressed expectations. It's everything. And if you don't have conversations with, again, what's the vision? What are we trying to do? And also for the day-to-day, you have systems and structures that show, because all money does, or a budget per se, is talking about priorities. When you create a budget, you're saying this is if rent is at the top, it's because rent is a priority. And so whatever is a bigger priority, more money will go to that. But when there's unexpressed expectations, my priorities might not be the same as yours. And if we do not have a conversation about these aspects and these situations, conflict will arise. And then if as a marriage and as a relationship, we don't have a way of conflict management, this is why I say the man is just showing a problem of communication in the marriage. Because we haven't found a way of managing our conflict. When we have a disagreement, and then the person who has the more money makes all the decisions. Then the other person feels like, I have no voice in this marriage. I have no say. I'm just there to cook food or whatever. Again, it starts to diminish the identity. And then because our marriage is two to become one, right? But that's not happening. Now we're on either side. It's like we're in a company. The CEO, I'm the COO or something. And now you do everything, then I'm reporting. And again, it starts to cause where I'm sitting on one side of the table and you're on the other side, as opposed to us being on the same side. And then it starts to impact decisions. It starts to impact... because with any marriage, there's always two things before marriage breaks up. First, you go out of rhythm, then you disconnect. So, when you don't deal with these things, first you get out of rhythm. But once you disconnect, to come back into reconnection, it's so difficult because once you start to lose trust, once you start to lose that this person has my interests at heart, and all these other aspects. So, I'll never say marriage is the cause of problem. You can lose a job and all this, but if you do not have the systems and structures within that marriage to manage this conflicts, to manage this changes, if someone is sick, whatever that may be. Even one of the hardest ones where someone makes a mistake. Because you tell someone don't do it, they do it, they make a mistake. How do you deal? Again, well, we're together on the same side, but in some marriages, like, I told you so, this, no. What are we trying to achieve at the end of it? I think that's how I would say this. Marriage will just be a magnified glass of whether that marriage is doing well or it has foundational challenges.
very, very quickly is, do you guys think marriages where women earn more could work? And is that a thought that's harming young men or preventing young men from getting married? Because I'll just give you a quick example. The other day I went to a wedding, and the number of girls that stood up to catch the bouquet, and very good looking girls, looking like, of course you can't judge from the outside, but looking like very well off mentally, physically, spiritually. And I was like, where are the men?
Yeah.
So do you think that's something that's harming young men from getting married? Or those kind of marriages could actually work?
I think, number one, don't plan your future based on where you are.
Yeah.
So just because she's earning a lot today, or because when you met her, she was earning more than you, that can change in an instant. And that's one thing a lot of guys don't realize. Like when I met my wife now, she was earning way more than me. That's because business wasn't good at the time, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now that's changed. So my question is, have you made the necessary, do the calculation. Everything that you're going through is subject to change.
Yeah.
So just because she's earning more than you doesn't mean that can't change.
Yeah.
If she's willing to sacrifice, because also I also understand where men are coming from. There's a lot of women who judge a man for earning less. You see, a lot of women will be like, can't be the broke guy. We've heard those things are real. Those are the real conversations which men are going through. And as a result, men are too afraid because they feel like they can't be with someone. But it's a form of, you have to humble yourself enough to be like, it's okay if she's earning more than me for now. That can change. Marrying her could be the secret source that God is using to bless me and increase me. It happened for me. Every wealthy person I know, they just married the right woman. My grandfather included, married the right woman, and everything just, God blesses you that way.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that the problem why a lot of men are refusing is they're coming in from the wrong perspective. They're thinking about, this is going to be my life forever. This is just the start. So if the start is here, yes, she is earning more than me, I have then a responsibility to increase and not to allow myself to be offended by that and be emotional. Women, on the other hand, also have a responsibility not to shame men for not earning as much as them, especially when they start out. One thing I love and appreciate about my wife, she never mentioned it. She never judged me. She never threw it in my face. She never did anything. She never used it against me as a weapon. And that's a dangerous thing, because I understand when men are apprehensive to getting married because of finances. But for them, finances can change. Just one good break, one right decision. And I always tell people, we all get that lucky break. All of us in our lives get those breaks. The problem is a lot of people, why they stay in poverty is because they're too afraid to take them. The lucky break could tell you, okay, you're moving from Nairobi to Nakuru.
Yeah.
And you say, no, I can't leave Nairobi. All my friends are here.
Siwezi.
Then God is like, you prayed for a breakthrough. Here it is. Take it and run.
Yeah.
But most people don't do that. And they judge their lives based on where they are, especially when they see the young men, they see the women, and then they're not willing to make the changes that are necessary sometimes to change. So I think for those men who are there, if you see a woman, even if she's like, don't look at her money, look at her. If she has a personality you want your kids to be influenced by, go right ahead. Don't hesitate.
To give you and people watching comfort.
Yeah.
I've seen couples. I mean, and one of the interesting dynamics has been, I know couples who his paycheck is her allowances. So it's not even a competition. Yeah, you're not going to catch up. But what has been interesting about what has made it work, exactly what you said, it's not about the money. As a man, you're doing what you set out to do. And it's provide that leadership.
Yeah.
And that leadership includes saying to your spouse, babe, I think you need to go down this road. And one of the beautiful things I notice about those couples is a man pushed and supported his spouse to be and get to that place. But on the flip is the lady has wisdom. And I love what you shared about your wife, where she comes back and says, this success is ours. My money is ours. Therefore, we sit at table. And just because I earn more and you earn less doesn't diminish you. And so you're able now to have a conversation about us. But to the young men, because that's a real challenge, a lot of guys are saying, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting dynamic. These ladies are earning more than you, but are expecting the guy to foot all these bills without question. So there are a lot of guys who are sitting back and doing the math and is like, but what am I getting out of this?
You're not,
I'm paying so much, but what am I actually getting? And increasingly, a lot of men are shying away from that because they're like, it's not. I'm getting the raw end of the list.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're used to simply being about money. Yes. And the minute you don't have, you're not able to provide financial, and it's financially, then you have of no value. So a young man is just sitting and he's like,
it's okay.
Let me do my thing.
Yeah.
And I've sat with a few guys and I was like, how come?
Your guys not
And he tells me the demands. Yeah. And he's like, I have that journey.
Yeah.
I'm building.
I need someone patient.
I need somebody who will walk this journey with me. But I can't be living and driving a German machine, living in a 3-bedroom, and there are 2 of us.
Yeah.
And we're going on holiday outside the country every year. And in the year, we're also doing 3 trips. Whatever was posted on Instagram. Yes. And we're always eating at all these. So it's just consistently going up. So a lot of guys also sitting back and they're like, okay, I hear you. But also then the flip is, what's the lady putting on the table?
That's
so that then increasingly we're having a conversation of partnerships in marriages.
Absolutely.
So both sides of the conversation are asking, what are you bringing to the table as a partner? And a lot of guys now are shying away from where they're looking and they're saying, I'm getting a road.
The math isn't adding up.
Yes.
Yeah. Because my wife pays, like if we go on a trip, sometimes she says, I really want to go. She'll pay her half. It's not something that I want her to do, but she says, no, I want to contribute to my ticket.
Yes.
Or I want to contribute to my stay. So I'm like, you pay for everything else.
Yes.
But this I pay.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's partnership. That's partnership.
I think it's hit it on the head in the sense that, as I mentioned before, money is just going to be a reflection of the value system of that marriage. And if you don't have a full understanding of why we're getting married, and don't have that conviction and vision of your marriage, then all these things will be obstacles. Because it doesn't matter who you marry, there will be obstacles. There will be things you must navigate. You do not have the maturity to navigate those. And for different people, there'll be different things. For some people, it's money. Some people, it's health. Some people, it's extended family. Whatever it may be, if you don't have the maturity to navigate through these things, again, it goes back to the aspect of what is the foundation that I'm building even this marriage on. What's the marriage's foundation? Have we defined what are the core values of this marriage that will dictate how we make the decision? But the one thing I would caution for young men is, irrespective of whether she's earning or not, I think for a man to get married, it's not just that you met the right person. You must have a vision of the marriage, and you must have a way of a maturity of creating value. If you haven't figured out a way of creating value in something, then it might mean that you don't have the maturity, because marriage is hard. It's a blessing, but it's hard. It requires a maturity mindset and mentality. And if you don't have that, then when you start dealing with all these facets, you'll be overwhelmed. Right? This is why now you keep up with the Joseph's, go drink, whatever it may be, because you can't manage. So irrespective of how much she's earning or not earning, do I have a way of, he talked about leadership, the maturity of the leadership, of casting a vision, having the strategy of how we're going to fulfill this. A way of that, I have an ability to be a steward, I can create value, I can be fruitful. If you're still learning those things, then don't complicate your life by adding marriage when you're still in process. Because a lot of challenges, people think if I found the right person to get married. No, take time.
Be the right person.
You have to be. You don't have to be perfect. That's not what we're saying. But a minimum level of maturity is required. It's the same way, there's certain places you won't be hired if you don't have a degree. So just the degree just has a representation of our maturity. You can go somewhere for 4 years and
show up every day and finish.
One of the reasons why they hire graduates is there's a level of maturity and commitment and consistency. And if you don't have that with marriage, money will show the spotlight that you don't have your maturity, you don't have your identity, you don't have the right foundations. Things in marriage, money, identity are not all well laid. And then all these things will overrode you and you'll be washed away.
So there's this debate that's going on online. I think I saw it yesterday or the day before yesterday. And basically, one of our friends, Muli, came out and it caused a debate online, and he said, a man should never love his partner more than he loves his purpose and his vision. What do you think about that?
See that word love? We need to define what love is, right? Because what does that mean? Because if you're defining love in terms of commitment, because that sounds like, from a priority perspective, you're saying that your vocation should be your purpose. And no, you see, the thing is, I believe that when you get married, you get a joint purpose.
Yes.
Everyone, there has to be a purpose in marriage, right? That all these other things, because Scripture says, it's Genesis 2:24-25. A man shall leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two shall become one. If I have my own purpose, if I have my own visions, and she has, we're not one. So you see, it's a misdiagnosing of what.
They're not understanding what.
Misunderstanding.
They need their wife for their purpose.
Because that mindset, you're still saying it's me. And this person is, because you see the challenges again with marriage is what people are saying is, what value are you bringing to this marriage? That's not how marriages work. It's a conviction that this is someone God has placed for me. And as we work together, as we improve with each other, we are going to
build together.
One puts 1,000 to fly, two puts 10,000 to fly. This is my multiplication. This person. The challenges with that mindset is the moment she has a challenge, like she's not adding value today. That marriage is in trouble because the foundation is based on the value you're bringing to the table. And
it's transactional.
It's transactional. The moment you don't bring that value to the table, I discard you, I divorce you, because at this moment in time, you're going through, maybe it's a season, health, whatever may have happened.
You now start treating them like a burden instead of a business partner or your responsibility.
From the perspective, you're not bringing value, so
you treat them like an employee. And not like a spouse.
And the challenge is, two are not becoming one. We're not saying how are we building together this vision together. There's no me and you. We're not on opposite sides of the table. And as long as a marriage is on opposite sides of the table trying to work together, it will never work. Because marriage, the fundamental aspect of marriage at the bottom of it is sacrifice. I always tell people, if you're with a spouse, especially the women, and you've never seen this person sacrifice anything in his life or has no culture of sacrifice, don't marry that person. Because the marriage will be like that. Marriage is like when you have children, sacrifice. You do so many things you don't want to do for the benefit of the other person. Not because of the value they're bringing, because then that's transaction. It's because this is my spouse now. We have entered into this thing that we're building each other. At whatever the cost is, we're building each other. And that's then what I call about the foundation of this marriage. But the moment we're on either sides and saying, now you're hurting my purpose, sometimes maybe your purpose requires your wife to reach a level of maturity. And you have to focus on her growing up before you can pursue that purpose. Because if you keep going with her level of maturity, it will all crumble. She will actually bring everything down.
It's true.
So I have to focus on her. So it means I want to achieve it in 5 years. It may take 10 years. But when you get that 10 years, it's sustainable because the foundation
is correct. Absolutely.
And purpose, and for men, you have to purpose why you're getting married. I think one of the unfortunate challenges with men is we do check boxes. So I have the job, I have the house, I have the car, I need a wife. What is a wife? A wife is a woman. A woman who is. And so you have this broad, you have these broad strokes that we brush. But you haven't processed, why do I need a wife? What are they coming to do in my life? And then what am I doing in their life? And as George has spoken, so that then they are part and parcel of your purpose. They're not just a piece that's coming in, and then you remove it. They're part and parcel of that journey, and so you make space for them. And that now is that discomfort, and also just giving them the space to be themselves. One of the beautiful things about my wife that initially I struggled with, now I really appreciate. My wife is headstrong and will tell it as it is. Now I deliberately seek her out, and I'm like, babe, I'm thinking, just to hear. Even I put my friend is thinking, just to hear, because it's a beautiful way of being able to break things down and bring the other side of the conversation. Now, if I want someone who's bringing value, I'm like, you say what I want. Yes, sure. But then how far will I go?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in that space, then she comes in and she's able to walk that journey with me. And then I'm also seeing, because I also have purpose to be a husband, then I open up that space for her to be who she is called to be. Yeah. And I think that's also very important as men at the beginning. Why am I getting married? Yeah. What is this person coming to do in my life? And then to move beyond just
check boxes.
Those check boxes. Yeah. Because unfortunately, which is especially if you marry later in life, you are brought someone. And you're told this is wife material. Why? Because they cook, clean, submissive. Yes. But who is the person you're married? What's their personality?
What do they believe in?
Yes. What do they believe in? And then walk the journey of your purpose together.
Absolutely.
And then integral part of it.
Also, don't assume that the only help that she can give you is financial or aesthetic. You know, some you have to understand spiritually. Some people have grace with wealth, so it's easy for them to make money, get the right job, get the right business. Things just work out for them in that department. But they are struggling spiritually, or they're struggling psychologically. They struggle with depression. They struggle with so many things. They struggle with family relationships. And your wife is there to be your helper. She's supposed to help you become better. And it's uncomfortable. There's nothing that is comfortable about growing and healing and recovering, because you're not all good. You can have everything sorted out as a man. You could have the right job, the right house, everything, all this boxes checked. But the one thing you don't have is peace of mind. You know, there are men that I know who, they're married now, but before they got married, they had the worst insomnia. They had all the money. They had no reason to be up at 3 or 4 a.m. every single night. But they are suffering. They were suffering with insomnia. They couldn't sleep. They couldn't rest. They were restless. They had no peace. They were drinking all the time. And they still have all this money coming in. The money is not the issue. They have it. In fact, their money is enough for 10 lifetimes. But they have no peace. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when you're looking for a helper and God has blessed you maybe in advance before you get married, the purpose is to, number one, enhance whatever you have and help you grow, but also to give you peace.
Very true.
And give you a warmth and a comfort that you can't get by being alone. You know, that you're not so empty on the inside. Because I know wealthy men who say, if I didn't have my family, there's friends that they have who are empty on the inside. You know, men who are in their 40s, some in their 50s, who are just, they're alone, they don't have anything going for them. They have everything that they need. They're very comfortable. But now you hear they're hanging around with young girls, Toshuguas and all, because it's not that they're bad guys, it's just empty. They just don't have the peace that comes with the family. And then they have their friends who stuck with their wives, who they fought it out, they stayed together, they fixed their marriage, they worked on it, they did this. And now they're in their late 40s, for example, and guess what? They have someone to be at home with every day. The house is not that big. Because see, when you're wealthy, because I believe that's the desire for a lot of us to be wealthy, when you're wealthy and you have a house, even if your house is not the nicest area, but it's your house 100%. You hear voices when there's nobody there. Your mind plays tricks on you because it's lonely. It's lonely, and you need someone to be at home with and to be comfortable with, and your life needs to be more engaging. And you can't have that if you just assume someone is there, because you can also alternatively marry someone just because they're a woman. And you guys don't have any conversations.
There you go.
You just stare at each other. She cooks for you. She does everything you want. Checks every box. You give her everything. She has every year you get her a new Benz. You have everything sorted out, but it's empty. A house that's empty, and you're both there because you are transacting, and then there's no depth to the relationship you guys have. Yeah.
Another, as you guys have spoken, another debate that I saw online has come to mind, and it was someone who brought up this thing that was saying that how come there's, a lot of people who maybe do what you're saying, so tithe, go to church daily and everything, but are still financially struggling. And one of the key answers in that thing was because money is based on principles. And that's why you find even people who have no God have a lot of money, because money is based on principles. So from like each one of you, what are some of those principles that someone who would write such a comment is not understanding?
If I may,
Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Number one, I started tithing in 2018. My mom had always told me to tithe, but I was tithing and doing the wrong business. You see, God will only bless you where He's instructed you to go. He won't bless you where you want. I can't decide to do Steve's job and I'm tithing and expect to become as good as him or get called to Hollywood. It's not my calling. You have to align two things. Even before you start tithing, align your calling. You see, your discipline, your aspects of your discipline, those are helpful habits. And it's good to have them. And I developed mine, and I was able to manage to bring out or develop very strong skills. But they were wasted in the wrong sectors. You see, I was wasting them doing businesses that I was never passionate about or interested in. Not even passionate, because see, I was passionate about them, but I was not meant for them. And it's very easy to confuse your passion, because passions come and go with your purpose. When God has called you to do something, or with your gift, actually, the word is gift. God gives us gifts. Apostle George likes telling us there are some people who have just the gift of discipline when it comes to diet. These gym people, they measure their food, they look at their portions. But he says, he'll tell you himself, there's days when, like on a Saturday, I'm like, I just want a burger. I don't care how many calories it has. 1,000, even if it's 10,000. Bring it on. Because I want to relax and enjoy my Saturday. But this guy, but he has a gift. He knows his gift. So he's focused on his gift. I have a gym trainer. His gift, he discovered when he was a kid of fitness. He prayed to God one day. He wanted to be as fit and strong because he assumed that's how he's going to get a good girlfriend. He's big and strong. So he started doing push-ups in class 5. If you see the guy right now, it shows. He started weighing his food, as in it became so natural to him. He's been doing this now. He's 29 years old. Since class 5, I think it was like, what's that? Like 10 years old? 9, 10 years. So he's been doing push-ups and sit-ups and everything since 10 years old. Now he goes around the world, competitions and all that stuff. I'm like, this guy found his calling. So there's no way he could try and be an accountant like Apostle George, or do banking like Apostle George, or finance, and try to be blessed the way he's blessed. He would not even be going global. But on the flip side, Apostle George, if he had tried to do what this guy is doing, he would have never seen the exposure. Because my friend, my trainer, is also more like a friend. He goes everywhere, Romania, you name it, just for these competitions. And he trains people. He trains people abroad. He trains, as in the exposure that he has is so high. But that's because he's living in his purpose. And a lot of people don't do that. You get into business because you heard it makes money. You see? But when God calls you to tell you, for example, like the people who started computer shops in the early 2000s, there's people who thought it was a fad. There's people who said computers are a fad. So forget about it. Then there was one person who said, let's give it a chance and learn it. And they made a killing. Then there are others who believed in it so much because they saw other people were making money, as opposed to now finding what is it for them. They started trying to copy the people who are doing well. So tithing can only work if you are positioned and placed in the right line. Like for me, I had partnerships which I had to end, business partnerships. God couldn't bless me in those partnerships. So the moment I ended my partnerships, everything just took off. That's it. It's just one small decision, which I kept on carrying people with me for with the vision God had given me. So now, at the moment God gives me a new vision, I look for Apostle George. See, let's register the company. Let's be in this together. The moment another vision came, to come. But the moment I removed all my partners and just restructured the businesses, and it was just me by myself, everything took off. So it's just about understanding that you're probably doing the wrong things, and God blesses you. When He gives you a calling, it's mainly for you or by yourself. You don't necessarily need partners, and a lot of people don't necessarily do that. They think that they need a lot more than they do. So that's why, I think. But that's just my opinion.
I like that because he's speaking about alignment. Yes. Like with anything, like with light.
Yeah.
The thing as kids, they put a magnifying glass. Because the light is aligned.
Yeah.
Glass,
It burns.
And burn things. But without it, it's like everyone else. So I like that. I think for me, the word is mentality. Because mentality will dictate your decisions. And the challenge is, I think Matu mentioned this before, is the reason why we don't have wealth is we keep making the wrong decisions over and over again, because the thing that is determining how we make the decision, the mentality, is always wrong. It's like if I'm in a room and it's dark and I'm always trying to navigate. The challenge is not that I'm hitting tables and all these things. The challenge is there's no light. And once there's light, then my ability to see everything. And that's what a mentality is. It gives you clarity of how I make decisions. And you always say there's either wealth mentality or scarcity mentality. A scarcity mentality means there's not enough for everyone. So that means we can't all be blessed. We can't all get a good job. We can't all get promoted.
Crabs in the barrel.
So that therefore means that for me to benefit, you have to fail. Yeah. And that then determines my mentality. Then that means I have to do it at all costs. When you have a wealth mentality, it's like I carry abundance. Wealth is from God. He gives us the abundance to create and produce wealth. The people with wealth mentality are the guys who say, drop me in Sahara Desert. 6 months,
I'll be fine.
I'll be because I have the mentality. I can recreate. This is not about, it's like the difference between someone who has fruit and someone who's fruitfulness. When you have fruitfulness, that means I can recreate. Even if you steal, I know, it's okay, still I will recreate. People who are waiting for like inheritance, they're waiting for fruit. And once that fruit comes, they have to be so careful, because as soon as this fruit reduces or grounds out, I'm done. But the mentality, because when you have that mentality that then is governed by principles, and your ability, because the challenge with principles is people don't follow them. Like, to be healthy and lose weight, it's very simple. Right? Eat less food and exercise. Like everyone knows, but we don't all do it because our ability to stick and to be consistent, the mentality allows us to align with principles. It allows us to keep doing. There's a lot of people who know what to do, they never do it. A lot of people work in the bank are broke. They touch money, they handle money all the time. But they're broke because they keep making the wrong decision. They keep not having the right vision. So what I would tell people is, if you really want to start to make money, is when you have the right mentality, it will then determine, what do I start to read? What are my gaps? What are my capacity gaps that I need to start to increase in? If it's budgeting, and what I learn about budgeting. If it's about accounts, I'll learn about accounts. Now I'll build that up. I need to understand investing. I'm not going to assume I know everything. But my mentality is, I'm here to be a steward. I'm here to be fruitful and multiply. So today, am I doing something that is fruitful? When you have a mentality, you have that 6 months, because you have that confidence. Even if I get fired, I'm okay. Even if my boss starts to treat me badly, I can quit. I'm not stuck in my job. I used to work in the bank. They'll give you a mortgage at 5%. And the rest of the world is at 15%. So people can't leave that job because of the mortgage. But when you have that wealth mentality, is his mortgage will be paid. I'm fruitful in everything that I do. I can lose this. I can lose all. I'll bring it back. But that will then feed into every decision that I make. And then there will be a collection of good decisions that will get me to that process and into that mentality of my life being transformed. Because to be wealthy requires transformation. And I'll close with like this. You're not going to be the same person who you are when you're broke. That's true. You have to be all the mentalities you had as you're broke. When you're wealthy, you think you'll be the same person. You won't. You have to change. You have to go through a journey of transformation and allowing yourself to go through that transformation. And if you wanted to remain the same, doesn't matter how much you pray, doesn't matter how much you tap. Because all those things is God trying to break things in our minds to allow us to see a new way, to give us perspective, to switch on the lights. So I now know how to navigate through things. But if the light is on, but I'm still hitting tables, like, might as well be off.
That's a good one.
I love what the two of them have shared. What I would add is, for a lot of Christians, we're transactional with God. So you tithe, you pray, you do things, and then say to God, look what I have done. Give me. whereas God is relational. And so finding your purpose. And when it now comes to the disciplines, and why then the disciplines work, if you're not saving, how are you going to grow? There's no magic that will happen that one day you will become wealthy. If you're not investing, how then do you suppose you will end up with that house, with that life that you're looking for? So irrespective of where you are, and I love what you talked about in terms of appreciating the space you're in. Because many times we are always looking for that distant vision. 2026 is my year to have this breakthrough. But what am I? Today I'm a clerk. What am I doing with my 10K? Tomorrow or next week I'm the bank manager. What am I doing with what I have in my space? And consistently. So those things around that discipline of how am I managing the money I have? Am I saving consistently? And as a first principle, not what is left over. And then I'm like, this month I can. Next month I'm like, that one. Consistently. Those savings, I'm growing them into. And what comes to mind is the parable of the talents. Each of us has been given different talents, and we are now in different spaces. Matu is in business. He's in the ministry. Within Centonomy. So we have a different space we're operating, but the principles remain the same irrespective of where we are. So putting those, and then that discipline of, this is the plan I have, this is the vision I'm looking to achieve, this is the roadmap. Then you stick to it. Because that's the other challenge. We can have, like you say, we all know we need to save, we all know we need to invest, and then you start saving, and then the holiday comes. You put it in our WhatsApp group. But I have the money. Or you now start gambling. And we gamble with many things. And so that discipline to stay the course.
Absolutely. There's a saying, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
You need to, there's a saying that a mentor of mine taught me once many years ago. It's in 2012, he said, and it was said even further back. There was a gentleman who had asked a group in the States, what is an entrepreneur? And a young man came with the most unique and amazing definition. Where he was asked, what is entrepreneurship? And he said, entrepreneurship is living your life in a way, a few years of your life in a way most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life in a way most people can't.
Wow.
Now, I love that because it requires sacrifice. Sacrifice meaning that you live in an uncomfortable way. When the trip comes up, you tell guys, listen, this is instant gratification. Paris 2026, I'm happy for you guys, have fun. But I want to go to Paris because I was still, when I was back in the day when I was starting out, I didn't get a job. I refused to get employed. And I said, I'm going to write out the business. And I struggled. I didn't pay rent 3 months at a time sometimes. And I had a struggle. However, I said, when the moment I go and live the life that I want to live, I'm going to live it at the highest level possible. If it's Paris, I will live on, I'll go to the Champs-Élysées. That's where I'm going to budget. No budget. I'm going to go there, economy. I'd rather sacrifice economy today. And enjoy business and first class later on as a wealthy person. And then go there and come back and still be wealthy. That's the idea that I had. I want to go to Paris, enjoy myself, come back to Nairobi and still be loaded. Still have money coming in. In fact, when I'm in Paris, I want to have money coming in there. But it requires living a few years of your life in a strange way. No Joneses, Maneno, no trying to show off with your friends. If you really want to, the young men say flex. Do it well. Do it well and do it in such a way, make enough money so it can be sustainable. So even your children can enjoy and your grandchildren can enjoy.
Actually, when you get to us, there's another man who said, get to a place where it's your life. It's not even flexing.
It's just who you are.
It's just who you are. You're flying.
You fly first. It's no like you don't even realize. Like there's a friend of mine whose father's a dollar billionaire. And once he had to go to Mombasa. Normally he always flies. He has a charter company. But this one time all the planes were taken. So he had to fly economy KQ. the guy was so shocked. He wasn't even angry. He's just like, I haven't flown economy in like 35 years. What's it like? How do I? I haven't done it since 1996. I haven't flown in at the economy. I only know business upwards. Business is the worst I've ever flown. But he was being told like the plane in Maja Ivi. There are too many people going to Mombasa. But and that's the way to live.
And actually, just to build on that, one of the other challenges we have. And I think it's maybe an African thing. We struggle with success.
That's true. We judge people for success.
So when I flex, I'm arrogant.
It's shameful.
But we need to get to a place where, why am I working so hard?
Thank you.
If I am working hard to have a house in Runda, when I have the money, go and buy the house in Runda. If I'm saving to buy a nice car, and that discipline
has rewarded you.
Yes, and it buy the car and enjoy it. Because I have created this whole frame. But many times, even in the Christian circle, we shy away from being successful.
Yes.
And so even when we envision it, we are working towards it, but when it begins to become a reality,
you start. It's like if I can give you an example, it's like if when God, you pray to get out of Egypt, you pray, God sends you Moses, he gets you across the Red Sea, and then the moment you start living across the Red Sea, the guys who decide to stay behind, you start listening to them. You start feeling like, maybe I don't really belong here. Maybe I should swim back. Let me swim back. And that happens. You're right. It's a sad thing. There's a Vusi Demekwai where I really like his work. He talks about how in Africa, if you become successful, it's a problem. You have to hide it. In the States, if George is rich, I want to hear how George got rich. I want to learn from George. And it's something that I've learned that wealthy people, I understand why wealthy people in this country have country clubs, golf clubs. I understand because they want to feel comfortable about being wealthy. They want feel comfortable about showing off with a new car because it's not a show off anymore. It's just life. As in,
it's a car you want.
It's a car that I wanted, I got it. And you go there, the whole parking is full of new Ranges. But it's like they just want to be together because nobody's going to judge them for living their normal life, you know? And it's a thing that we have a big problem in Africa. And there's even an audio recording I had on TikTok. Sorry to digress.
No worries.
Where a young man in the village had sent his mom money, but it's like she wanted more. I don't know what she wanted. And she sent it back and says, "Staki kana hiyo pesa. Hata staki uninunulie madawa." Mimi usahau ni mama. As in, it was so sad because this guy was buying his mom medication, doing this, but because his success is not 100% coming to his family. Family gets entitled when you make it. Family gets really entitled when you make it. The people who you grew up with, they start saying, now where's my share in this thing, which because you're my brother, where's my share in it? And it's a very, very sad thing. Black tax I think it's black tax, and I personally don't pay. I don't agree with it, and it's terrible. It's not fair.
Guys, I think it's been an amazing conversation. As we wrap this up, I'd like to hear your final words for the audience listening.
So as a man, identity. Know the journey that you're on and your purpose. The earlier you can do that, the better. And secondly, those disciplines, especially around money. Whatever you have, be a great steward of it. And that begins with saving as a first principle, investing that money, then having a budget that speaks to the things that are important to you. And you're consistently sticking within that budget. And what that does for you is it's a tool to help you. And you put the things that are important to you. Not the generic stuff that you're just paying bills. You want to go out, you want to go on holiday, put it there, and be deliberate about it. Because life is for the living. And enjoy that journey. And that consistency is what gets you to success we all look for.
Before we even get to you two, you said purpose. He said purpose. I don't know if Apostle George has mentioned purpose. But maybe just one thing. How does one discover purpose? Because I think even before we wrap that up, I think if there's one thing I'd also like to take away is how does one discover purpose? Because you're saying in your purpose is where your light shines the brightest. So to I and the other people listening at home, how does one, in your opinion, discover that purpose?
Sure. I once heard someone say that your purpose is hidden in your gift. And your gift is the thing that you do the best with the least amount of effort. Like for me, my gift is networking, talking to people, connecting, business. Those are my gifts. There's a time I didn't want to do some of the businesses that I'm doing right now. But God had given me a grace in those businesses. I was just refusing. And that's the thing about gifts. It's the thing that you want to neglect because you take for granted, unfortunately, and you find boring doing, but you do it so well. You see, if you look at Tiger Woods, he did it so well. His father was like, he forced him into his gift.
Yeah, that's true.
And it just became second nature to him. But there was times, obviously, he would fight with his dad because his dad wouldn't let him leave the course when he wanted to hang out with his friends. He didn't let him have a life outside golf. And it came naturally to him. It was the easiest thing that came to him. It was a natural thing. But that's where his calling was, and that's how he's worth $1.3 billion today. So your gift is actually what defines your purpose. You know, it's where God hides your vision. As Steve Harvey says, his gift was he wanted to be on TV. So he was a comedian actually. And so he has the gift, which is he told jokes for a living. Then his vision was he wanted to be on TV. You see, so they go hand in hand. So there's the gift, and then there's the vision.
To add to that, where I'll define it with him, I say, or I believe your gift leads you to your purpose, but it's not your purpose.
Fair enough. That's true. That's true.
His gifting was the interpretation of dreams. That's true. His purpose, he would have opened up dream interpretation business.
That's very true.
Consultancy and all. But his purpose was to be the governor of Egypt in that period of time. But his gift allowed him to be brought before Pharaoh. Right? Because his ability of interpreting dreams brought him before Pharaoh. And once he interpreted that dream, he was then promoted into his purpose. And so there's a significance of our gifting, because when we mature and progress in our giftings, it allows us to get, because majority of our purposes is not to be a doctor or a nurse or a man. But those things are vocations. Our purpose has an aspect of influence and governance. It's a place I've been put to govern a certain area, if it's your family or whatever that jurisdiction is. How do I cause that to be influenced within this space and start to shift and transform it? So normally your gifting will take you to that place that will rise and get promoted into your purpose. But the easiest thing I'll tell people is to understand, where does purpose come from? Because purpose is not just something that's flying around, right? It's something from God. And it's like if I bought you a new phone that you thought it's all in Chinese, you need a manual, you need someone to show you how to interpret it. So we were made by God, so He knew what purpose we were. So we know if there's someone we can speak to and can download to us, what is that thing I'm meant to be doing? Because I always thought that his purpose was vocational, it was gifting, but those things lead you. They are so
that's true. That's very true.
But they're not our purpose. Our purpose is an aspect of influence. Same thing with David. His purpose, his gifting was he could kill bears and lions. He could do all these things, but his purpose was to reunite Israel together, all the different regions, to bring them all together, to have influence. So if you think you're working in purpose, but there's no level of influence, that's not purpose. But to get the clarity, and this can be my own final one is, go to the one who made you. Speak with him. Ask him to download. And sometimes he will download everything today. Joseph didn't know when he was 17 or that he was going to be the mayor or governor of Egypt. But there was a journey. Because there's one thing on knowing your purpose, then there's a transformation to be ready to fulfill whatever that purpose is. So He'll keep leading you. Slowly,
a step at a time.
This is a saying, just enough life for the next step. And because you think sometimes your purpose is this, and it looks like you're going
The other way.
The opposite is right. Then you think you'll feel like Joseph was to be governor, but he went to jail first. Then he went to slavery and all this. You're going the opposite side of purpose, but that was part of his transformation journey required for him to fulfill. That's why when you have that depth of identity, because without identity, it's almost impossible to fulfill purpose. But without identity, you conform to the patterns of the
Absolutely.
The Joneses come, because sometimes at the close, your purpose may say, you need to quit your job today for you to fulfill purpose. Sometimes a lot of these great tech giants, they didn't finish university.
Yeah, they dropped out.
They didn't do what was the normal course of people to do. They were standing out because they knew and they had a conviction. As I had to go this way. But when you don't have that identity, you'll be so scared to tell your dad. You paid all the school fees, but I don't want to finish school. When you without identity, it's impossible to have conviction.
I would add, in what you do, what are the things that are pinpoint? Those things that touch you in a special place, that cause you sleepless nights because you're like, surely there has to be a solution to this. And in that space, then that introspection is so important. You're gifted. Because then you begin to see, I can do something in this space. And not only that, there's a confidence that I am able to create this thing. I am able to be this person. I am able to speak into this space. And I love what Apostle George has said. Purpose is not circumstantial. It transcends circumstances. So irrespective of where you find yourself, you're still on the journey. Yes. And you are clear. Even when you seem to have deviated, you are clear. And so my wife is actually on who pointed that out for me. It's sometimes the things that cause you angst and you feel I am the one who has a solution to this. Many times also that will be where you discover your purpose.
What's your final word, sir?
In not so many words. Number one, decisions. Make the right decisions. Figure out how to do what's best for you. Number two, connect with your gift. Connect with your gift. But most importantly, I think is change. Change.
Cannot remain the same.
You can't. As in, I tell my wife this all the time. The wealthier we become, the more I'll change. And I'm telling you now, because change has to be intentional. You know, this idea that you're not supposed to change, you remain the same guy you are when you go. No, that's rubbish. Even the person you were in high school is not who you are right now.
That's true.
So you have to change and change intentionally. And I believe don't be ashamed of changing. Don't be ashamed to be a different person. Don't be ashamed to dress differently, drive differently, think differently, talk differently. Don't be ashamed to change. That's why we're here. We're here to be different people. So I think that's the most important thing. Change. Allow yourself to change for the better. But change nonetheless. You have to. And allow yourself to change fully. Even your friends. Change your environment. If you find an environment that's not good for you, change. Find a new environment. If it's if God leads you to a different place, change locations. Break cycles that you don't want to see repeated. But change.
Gents, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Apostle George didn't get to say.
He said when he was talking, this would also be my final word. So thank you so much, gents, for taking your time on a work day, to come and drop such knowledge or sense. Thank you as well, Mr. Kingori, Apostle George, and Matu.
Thank you.
For those of you tuning in from home, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Talking Sense by Centonomy. I hope you've learned a thing or two, and see you again. Goodbye.